morning. Welcome to day 24 at Quantum's Liberty DeStress series. Countdown. It's a 16-week countdown, and we're at day 24. And hope this day's finding you well. There you go, birdies. Here's your water. Today on the phone, I have Amelia and Juliette, again with me from Oklahoma. The girls watched, we're still tapping right away, tapping on the karate chop point right here. And what this does is it slows down the firing of the neurons to the amygdala so that you will be able to think about the next best thing to do. Instead of the oxygen flooding to the arms and legs from the amygdala receiving information, the fight-flight system, instead the oxygen stays in your brain. Now, with the tapping meditation, Daniel Goleman and Robert Dickinson did a study in 2018, and they found that the tapping meditation also helps to have more gamma waves on the EEGs go to all four parts of the brain, so that the four parts of the brain are actually in communication with each other in a more balanced way. Another thing that we can do this, according to Schmidt, is we can relax, and this is an MD of otolaryngology, is to relax the vagus nerve by relaxing the tongue on the floor of the mouth. So you just drop the tongue down to the floor of the mouth, and this triggers the vagus nerve. And when this is in balance, then all of the organs actually relax with it, including heart rate. So there's a picture of the vagus nerve and how it's attached to here. And then what happens is you relax the mandible, you relax the tongue on the bottom of the mouth, and the mandible relaxes at your jawbone. And this is connected to all the organs in your body to help it relax. So we have the opportunity to do that, and we're going to do that because Amelia and Juliette already talked with us about what Amelia heard at school, and she told Juliette that it was her friend that her dad and mom know from the East Coast, although they moved to Oklahoma. At school, even though they're only 6 years old, they heard the story that he was hit with a fire extinguisher, and this was very, very upsetting. So we talked about that, and we tapped on that for a few days, actually. And so now we're at a point where it was significantly healing to see the Capitol yesterday, right, girls? In a state where it was absolutely beautiful. They had cleaned everything up, and the Capitol looked absolutely lovely, and there were cameras everywhere, so you could see that everybody was walking through these beautiful, clean hallways. And so the girls and I were talking about that a couple of things was keep on tapping, right? Because this tapping is going to slow down the neuron firing to the amygdala, and that's our fight-flight system in our brain. So when we have the images coming through and we're tapping, then what happens is we can think about the next best thing to do. And so when the girls were tapping and seeing all of the images of the Capitol, right, then they were able to think of the next best thing to do. And what was really cool, and I love this, you girls, was that Amanda, she's our Nobel laureate, and she read her poem. And she read something that the girls and I talked about, which was that in her poem it said, we would lay down our arms, right? Lay down all the fighting things like fire extinguishers, keep tapping, right? And instead we open our arms. And one of the girls had this great idea, right? Which was that if you're going to open your arms, like the three presidents who transferred the power sequentially to each other, those three presidents were talking in the same place with them. And that's the beauty of a democracy, right? Is that we can communicate with each other. So we need to communicate. The girls thought, suppose those three presidents got together, and it would have to be Zoom because we don't want anybody getting sick from coronavirus, then they could communicate with Mr. Trump, right? And discuss and say, what is it that you wanted? What is your vision, right? How can we help you, like, to open our arms to understand what it is that you wanted to do? Did you want to just leave the coronavirus going, like, not doing what we're supposed to be doing, no mask and no social distancing and all of that? Or were you going to actually look at that? Because Governor Christie said that Mr. Trump doesn't like to lose, and so it was really scary for him to think about losing against the coronavirus, right? So he told people it wasn't real. It's just going to miraculously go away. And 404,000 people were dead yesterday, so probably 408,000 people dead today, because it's still going really, really fast, killing people. So what we have to do with the tapping, the girls thought, well, instead of like picking up arms, we put down the arms, right? We set aside our differences, right? And we open our arms so we can understand one another better. This doesn't mean giving the power, like saying we don't have to take care of coronavirus, because we do, right? They were very mad because they said coronavirus is not real, but we do know, and I know because I'm a critical care nurse for 35 years, that it really is true. It's the real thing. But if you were just looking around every place, you would think, well, it's not really true. But in critical care and in the hospital, we do see that, and we know it is true. And you guys know that in Oklahoma, the governor doesn't say you have to wear a mask, but the doctor, I forget what his name was. Yeah, he said that it's a mess. There's no ICU beds available for because they're all taken up with these COVID patients. And he said it's very, very dangerous, but he did not go one step further and say, so we have to wear masks because that will keep less numbers of people coming in, right? And social distancing and washing your hands 20 seconds with soap, that's all going to help. So the big thing with the tapping meditation is that it allows us to see what is the next best thing to do. So we do know that the next best thing to do, according to this inauguration and also according to medical science, the way that we base medical practices on science. And so one thing that we do know about science, keep on tapping, is that we have, and the brain, is that we have set points in our brain for happiness. And it's possible over the last 4 years that we didn't have the happiness levels that we used to have, right? Things got a little bit out of control, like not taking care of the climate. And so there were massive fires and winds and floods and all kinds of chaos with the climate. But now we're going to take care of that. Hopefully, we're going to be really aggressive about that. Already we're signed on to the World Health Organization to figure out more things about coronavirus, and also to the Paris Accord, and stopping drilling in the Arctic so the animals can, be happy. And so there's a lot of good things that are happening already. And so what we need to do is to lay down our arms and open our arms and perhaps teach Mr. Trump and the people who don't think that it's real, and just tell them, well, let's just show you this and be open to this. Maybe maybe we can set our differences aside and we can look at science and say, because most important is education. Education and knowledge is power. When you have the knowledge and you have that power, then you know that you can make changes. And we have to adjust. That's what coronavirus is teaching us, that we're very social people, but we have to adjust our sociability because in order to survive this, we have to adjust with it. So nature is teaching us. Now, in our brain, we do have set points for happiness in our brain. And so what we want to do now is we want to tap on any of the resistances that we have inside of us to having more happiness in our brains, because we can now be in tune with what we actually have to do, but we have to tap on our traumas, right? And we have to raise them after tapping on the traumas. Once those fall away, like we did with the fire extinguisher in the last few days, right? We tapped on that. Then we can begin to look at how we can raise the bar for our happiness levels. And tapping definitely raises the bar for all those neurohormones and neurotransmitters that just flood our body and brain and bring us into a state of bliss and happiness and love and being able to think about the next best thing to do clearly. So let's tap on our resistance to happiness. Like we could say that even though it was scary, right, to see the images of the Capitol again, and you address that and feel that inside of your heart, love it, like that scariness or that fear or sadness is your beautiful baby of you, right? And so we're tapping on that feeling inside of you, and you are having your own back, and you are definitely talking to professionals if you need to, or to your mommy and daddy, anybody, okay, about what you're feeling inside your heart. It takes great courage to look inside of there and hold it and have your own back and love yourself and lay down the arms and open your arms to each other. So even though, repeat after me, even though, you guys are so, love you. So even though I had this fear, I had this resistance to looking at the Capitol, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I had this resistance to seeing the Capitol, I deeply and completely love myself exactly as I am. Even though I had this resistance to looking at the Capitol, I deeply and completely love and accept myself.